Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Reboot, GameSpot's opinion editorial show. I'm Mike Mahardy.
And I'm Jake Dekker.
And if you watched last week's episode, then you know this is kind of halfway between Season 1 and 2 of Reboot. We're going to kind of try to do 8 or so episodes a season. We used E3 a couple weeks ago in Los Angeles to divide the season. So last episode in our ending, we asked people for suggestions with the show going forward. We want to talk about those today. We want to talk about what we saw at E3. And we also just wanted to talk about what we're excited to cover in the coming season or so, whatever you want to call it, of Reboot. So we do have like one comment that actually this comment was kind of prevalent throughout the YouTube comments under the Red Dead Redemption 2 and Why You Should Love Video Game Delays episode of Reboot. We kind of wanted to talk about this quickly before we do move on to the future of Reboot. So Jake, if you want to read it.
Yeah, this one's by Joseph on YouTube, and he says, I don't mind game delays, but I think publishers and developers should really have a much firmer idea when to release a game. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I realize that there are a lot of things, like we talked about in the last episode, that, you know, these catastrophes can happen and these studios can undergo, you know, some behind-the-scenes errors or, you know, just tumult, and every once in a while a game has to get pushed back, and, you know, like when developers and publishers make that call, it'd be pretty refreshing to see that, but this reminds me of what Bethesda did this year at E3, their press conference, which some people thought was not that great. I actually thought the same thing at first because, we didn't see anything major that's coming out in 2018 or 2019. But I actually liked that they said, here's Wolfenstein 2, here's The Evil Within 2, here, you know, this is when these games are going to be released. And they showed off the games like, they're clearly, or at least, you know, Wolfenstein 2 is clearly done. People played a lot of it afterwards. But these are the games that you're going to play before the end of 2017 over the next 6 months. And that was really refreshing because it would have been cool to see an Elder Scrolls 6 announcement or an Obsidian-developed Fallout spinoff. But, you know, that would have been in the far future, and then by the time we actually get to that release date, maybe they'll push it back again. Maybe if Beyond Good and Evil 2 or The Last Guardian or Final Fantasy 15 had held off on their release dates initially a little more, then people wouldn't kind of have such a negative opinion of, you know, those games that came out. You know, Final Fantasy 15, The Last Guardian 2 are both great, but you know, now looking back, you wonder if they would have been better off in development side of things if they had held off on telling a release date.
Yeah, and I think you brought up Elder Scrolls 6, like people want to see a teaser for that. And I mean, we all know Elder Scrolls 6 is coming. Mm-hmm. Like they don't need to say that, Elder Scrolls 6, which I think they have. They've said it's coming, but it'll be a while. So yeah, I would much rather have that announcement. That I would much rather Bethesda hold off on that and just announce it when it's ready, kind of like what they did with Fallout. So we know that, okay, we're going to be getting this game on this date. However, I don't think all developers can do that. I think some developers, especially E3, they need that hype. They need people to get behind their games early in order to spread the message, to share thoughts, etc. And there are also huge teams behind games, so it can be tough to nail down an exact date. But yeah, I think it would be better for developers to say, this game's coming in 2018, and then as we get closer, announce the date, rather than give a date 2 years in advance or whatever.
And yeah, we do have one more comment that we want to bring up on YouTube from Brown Sean H. Fantastic episode, guys. Really like the show overall. Structure was conducive to conveying your opinions, and you asked hard questions, which is what the industry needs. I have a question. How do you plan to expand the show or adjust the format for Season 2? As in, what new ideas are you excited about? So in general, I think for the time being, we might not tease the next episode. We found that a lot of times people in the comments were excited to see this, and then, you know, we do the Reboot episode. They're like, oh, great, like, what are you going to do next time? And kind of built up these expectations, and it became a wall after a while because for the Injustice 2 episode specifically, I remember that's the first one we really pivoted last minute, and I don't want to make, we're talking about, like, game delays and broken promises. I don't want to make a promise and then be like, shit, I actually have something more interesting to say about this game, despite the fact that we promised this game. So for the time being, I think we're going to stop teasing the episodes, but we will absolutely continue to look through the comments to see what you want us to cover in the future, because we do have a lot of episode ideas that we took out of your input.
Yeah, I think a lot of these topics, too, that we jump on, well, not a lot of them, but there's a good amount of them that, like, a story will break the day before, and we'll be like, holy shit, we should do something on this. And then you'll write the episode the next day, and then we'll edit Reboot the following day. So it makes a lot more sense to hold on to what we're going to do. But still, like, keep giving us suggestions of what you'd like us to cover, because we do like to touch on that as well.
Yeah, and then Jake and I were talking, I think on the last episode, that the stuff with me on camera worked for what we were talking about and the themes of the episode. I think we're going to feel less constricted in terms of, oh, we should have an on-camera thing here. Like, I'm going to be playing this game. I think after a while, the actual time it takes to film and, you know, Jake, when he's doing the lighting and the actual shooting and figuring out where to shoot this stuff, it takes some valuable time away from research or editing, which, you know, some episodes, like I said, like the Red Dead Redemption one, made sense to have on-camera stuff, but in the future, we're not always going to have that. So you also, bonus, you don't have to see my dumb face all the time.
In an apron.
Yeah, in an apron. But yeah,
I
consider that more in the future.
I really do like shooting these, but I think Mike's right in that not every episode needs it, and it feels forced a lot of times.
Yeah.
We still will shoot things, like, if it makes sense. But
I still like the Resident Evil one, our very first episode.
yeah, for example, that. Like, if we have an idea like that, we're definitely going to be shooting something like that. However, the Mass Effect one probably didn't need to camera stuff. But, yeah, so...
Yeah. Speaking of the war one, people in the comments throughout all the videos, and then even this last video, said, thought this episode was shallow, but this one was really good. And the one that people frequently pointed to, even though it didn't do as well as some of our other ones, was the episode about war games.
Which makes me happy, because that's my favorite episode.
Yeah, same here. I think that's the one that had the most research, and that was originally going to be our first episode, I think we said before. But we're going to keep trying to take, you know, like, actually not just give our opinion about something that other people have given their opinion about, like game delays. I still like that last episode, but I do, in my opinion, it was one of the weaker ones in terms of what I wrote, because so many other people have had an opinion on delays. It just seemed dumb not to talk about it, because I want to get it out of the way. Around the Red Dead Redemption 2 delay and the Shadow of War delay, which I will absolutely talk more about that game in the future, both of those. But people like the war episode, and we want to keep that in mind moving forward. Like, how can we look at this genre differently and kind of offer our own take? Or, you know, the next episode, again, I'm not going to promise anything, but the one I'm kind of writing right now is looking back at a game that I absolutely adore that people might not have played. And I think you should. And I'm like almost breaking my promise not to tease episodes. But yeah, we want to keep taking a new game or like a game on its anniversary and trying to look at it in a different angle than other people have, rather than give our own opinion on a topic a lot of other people have discussed already.
Which can be tough to do.
Yeah, it's not always easy. Like, finding a way to talk about Injustice 2 was like, damn, there's so many things I love about this game. What do we talk about? You know, it's the stuff that jumps out at us, and then a lot of times Jake will hit me up with like a suggestion. I'll be like, damn, that's actually cool. We should run with that. Yeah, it's pretty much just, you know, figuring out as we go. Jake, you and I were just talking a few minutes ago about Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus. I'm a huge shooter fan, and we both love the first game from Machine Games and Bethesda. I'm sure there'll be something to talk about with that.
So fucking excited for this game.
It looked awesome. Did you play it?
No, I didn't get it. Well, I played New Order, but I didn't get a chance to play New Colossus. But that first game, it was far from perfect. Like, it definitely had its missteps. It had its problems, and I wasn't too wild about the gameplay all the time. However, I think that story is one of the best, like, World War II stories ever told, and it is completely ridiculous.
Alternate history.
Yeah, and I think BJ Blazkowicz is one of the best first-person shooter characters, which is strange because he had no right to be that good of a character in the first game.
Little interesting trivia. The voice actor Brian Bloom is the guy who mocapped and did the voice acting and wrote Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. If you played that, that's
really?
your protagonist, yeah. So that's in Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, like, they use his face and his body and his voice, but that's also BJ.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's rad.
I'm looking forward to that one.
I'm so excited. The more I think about it, I'm so excited.
It's that, and Far Cry 5 is also an interesting one we might touch on, but again, that's a game that I feel like in terms of the themes, I think everyone's going to want to talk about. So if we can't find an alternate way to talk about that game, like, I'm most interested in the structure and mechanics of shooters. If they have cool themes, that's awesome, and an added bonus. Obviously, the War Game episode, we talked how they can be deeper than just the mechanics and the systems that are overlapping, but Far Cry 5 and Wolfenstein 2 are both this, like, occupied America kind of setting. Wolfenstein 2 on a much larger scale and an alternate history, but I'm really looking forward to that, so I'm sure we'll talk about that, and maybe Far Cry 5, no promises there.
I bet you Wolfenstein will be far better written than Far Cry 5 if they have the same team. Far Cry 5 was fun, though. Like, don't get me wrong, Far Cry 5 was fun, and to be fair, I played about an hour during E3, and we didn't get to see really any of the story. We just played the game, and mechanically it was pretty good. I'm just curious to see how they handle the story with that game.
Maybe I'll use Far Cry 5's release as an opportunity to go back and talk about Far Cry 2, one of the best games ever made. Because it has an ally system in 5 that looks like they're drawing from 2.
Yeah,
Clint Hawking.
It definitely is.
Yeah,
but it almost doesn't seem as in-depth.
which sucks because that's really cool.
Yeah. I
Speaking
need
of
to replay that game.
Speaking of, like, I was just gonna say that's like the opposite. You know, like you develop, if you haven't played Far Cry 2, you develop these allies that kind of have these relationships to you, almost like the opposite of Shadow of Mordor's Nemesis system. And speaking of that, Shadow of War, I'm a huge Tolkien nerd. I don't know if this has seeped into Reboot yet, and I'm looking forward to this. But I'm not worried, but I'm kind of apprehensive about Shadow of War because as someone who played a ton of Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War looks like it's going to be overwhelming as hell with how many systems are overlapping. It still looks awesome, and I'm glad they delayed it because, going back to last episode, it seemed like they had more time to kind of, you know, congeal everything. But I'm really looking forward to that game. That's mid-October, if I'm not mistaken. So
October is going to be a hell of a month.
Yeah, so yeah, we have to keep in mind that all these things we're talking about, like, I really would love to do a deep dive into like a Mario game's level design, like Super Mario Odyssey.
October.
Yeah, the same day as Wolfenstein 2. I would love to actually look at how I got to play Odyssey. That's actually, I was up on the stage at E3 hosting stuff. So the only game I actually got to play on the show floor was Super Mario Odyssey, and it was still, that's the one game I'm happy I got to play because it was awesome. I'm really interested in how they're taking the traditional 3D Mario design, level design, and making it into these sandboxes where you can go every which way instead of this linear path, which Mario has perfected.
I also just love how batshit that game looks.
Yeah,
like that,
Cappy.
I have no idea what the fuck's going on in that game, but I love it.
In the closer future, I'm really, really, really excited about Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, which I never thought I would say out loud or before I saw it at the E3 press conference that Ubisoft did. They announced it on the stage when Miyamoto came out of smoke holding a fucking gun.
That was the coolest thing that happened at E3.
I can't wait to see how they take that turn-based kind of, you know, Fire Emblem, XCOM, maybe even Final Fantasy Tactics formula and implement it to this weird mashup of Ubisoft and Nintendo icons. I can't wait for that game. And it's also going to be on the Switch. I'm really excited to try that out. Maybe we'll talk about it. We'll see. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. I think another game that would be interesting to talk about too, maybe, once again, it's a busy month, but Assassin's Creed Origins, I think what they're doing with that game and series is really fascinating. They've taken a lot of cues from other games, and they took some time off, and I think this game has the potential to be interesting again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that game hopefully bringing me back to the franchise, which I haven't cared that much about since Black Flag, and honestly, even then, I didn't like it for its Assassin's Creed elements. I liked it because it's a pirate game, which is now a full game in Skull and Bones, kind of Ubisoft. I think, in a smart move, took the pirate elements of that game and made it into a full game, which will release sometime in 2018. I don't think they have a set date yet. But, and then one more that I was stupid excited about when I saw on the Microsoft stage was Metro Exodus from 4A Games.
Yes.
From the Ukraine. This Metro 2033 and Last Light. Some of the most, like, underrated shooters ever, especially Last Light. Maybe not underrated, but underappreciated because not that many people played it.
Yeah.
I think it's still a cult classic. If you haven't played it, once you watch this, start playing Metro Last Light, or 2033, and then go into Last Light. They're so well-paced that you could blow, despite the fact that they're both pretty lengthy shooter campaigns, you could probably blow through them in a weekend just because they're so well-paced.
Unless you're playing on the hardest difficulty Ranger mode, which I recommend, but it's tough. Yeah, I think when we heard the rumor that Microsoft might be sharing a new Metro game for the Xbox One X, I think both of us were by far the most excited people in the office because I love Last Light. Yeah, no, I mean, like, we should probably cut it off there because we've been talking a while, and we basically, a lot of people were saying it wasn't the best E3, but I thought it was actually pretty exciting based on a lot of stuff. And, we could keep going on all day about the games we want to cover. But, yeah, again, if you've been watching every episode of Reboot up till now, or even just joined us and want to go back and watch our previous ones, we absolutely love having all your input and the comments and reading the comments after we publish these videos, or like getting tweets about the show, whether it's criticism or, like agreeing with us or praise or anything. Honestly, it's awesome. You're the best part of the show. That's why we do these episodes, these off-week episodes where we talk directly to you. Keep it coming. Keep all the input, the constructive criticism coming. Keep the arguments coming. We love to see people present other sides of view. That's like half the point of the show. And we're going to keep doing it. And just as, I guess, a tip, but I think the easiest way to get a hold of us is through Twitter if you have a question, because while we don't mind, while we always pour through all the YouTube comments, it's easier when it's on Twitter because that question's right in front of us rather than us trying to dig through it. Yeah. So there's a little tip, I guess, if you want your question featured on the show one of these days,
Yeah, but now the E3's done, we're back on schedule, so we will have an episode a week from today if you're watching this on Sunday. And we're looking forward to that. I've already started writing it, but again, not going to tease it in case we pivot last second. But I am really, really excited about this one. So yeah, hopefully we'll see you in 7 days, and until then, maybe go back and catch up on past episodes or play all the predecessors to all these sequels we just mentioned.
Yes, Metro, Wolfenstein, all the Mario games.
Yeah, that's your homework in the next 7 days. Beat every Mario game. All right, we'll see you next week.
See ya.